What if everything you've ever felt, thought, or dreamed could be described by a single number? Not your IQ, not your heart rate, a number that describes the real you. It sounds impossible. But some scientists believe that number exists, and if they're right, it might be the key to understanding what consciousness truly is. Consciousness is what turns the physical world into an experience. It's what makes being alive feel like something instead of nothing. But here's the strange part. We still don't know what consciousness actually is. You experience it every second, yet no one can point to the exact place in your brain where it lives. Scientists can measure your brainwaves and map your neurons, but they can't see the awareness itself, the quiet presence that experiences the world. That's the great mystery of the mind. Neuroscientists call it the hard problem of consciousness. It asks how electrical signals in the brain can create something as rich and personal as experience. How can a bunch of cells firing make you feel happiness, pain, or love? It's like asking how code on a computer screen can turn into emotion. And for decades, no one had a real answer. Then one neuroscientist decided to look at the problem differently. Giulio Tononi, an Italian researcher, came up with an idea called Integrated Information Theory, or IIT for short. He believed that consciousness might not depend on having a brain like ours. Instead, it might depend on how information is connected inside a system. Think of it like this. Your brain isn't just a pile of separate parts, it's an enormous web of neurons all talking to each other, combining signals from your senses, memories, and emotions. It's constantly mixing everything into one unified picture of reality. Tononi wondered if the key to consciousness was this integration. If information inside a system is well connected and works together as one, the system might have consciousness. If it's scattered or disjointed, it probably doesn't. To describe this, Tononi created something radical, a mathematical value called phi. Phi is a number that measures how much a system's parts depend on each other. A high phi means the system is highly integrated, like the human brain. A low phi means it's more like a machine where each part just does its own job without awareness of the others. So according to IIT, consciousness isn't about what something's made of, but how it's structured. It's not about neurons or silicon chips, it's about how information flows and connects. That idea is huge because it reframes consciousness as something measurable, not magical. It says awareness might appear whenever information becomes integrated enough. That means humans have a very high phi. But maybe in a small way, so does your dog, or even a simple organism. Here's where it gets even more interesting. If phi can be measured, then consciousness might exist on a scale, not just on or off. Not just conscious or unconscious, but more like a gradient from dim awareness to full self-reflective experience. But before we start assigning consciousness points to everything, there's a catch. Calculating phi isn't easy. In fact, it's almost impossible with current technology. Even a small cluster of neurons has millions of possible connections. Trying to calculate how each part affects every other part is like trying to count every grain of sand in the desert. While it's blowing in the wind, scientists can only estimate it using simplified models. Still, they've found clues that support the idea. When people lose consciousness, under anesthesia or in a coma, the brain's activity becomes less integrated, regions stop communicating as much, the overall complexity drops. When people wake up, those connections return. It's as if the brain's phi rises again, so maybe phi really does tell us something about the structure of awareness. But it isn't as straightforward as it seems. Some scientists think turning consciousness into a number is too simple. They argue that no formula can capture what experience actually feels like. You can measure the brightness of light, but not what it's like to see it. You can measure sound waves, but not what it feels like to hear your favorite song. Experience is smooth and continuous, not divided into bits of information. So maybe awareness can't be reduced to a single number, no matter how clever the math. That criticism is fair. But IIT isn't claiming to solve everything. What it offers is a bridge between two worlds, the physical and the subjective. It's a way to describe consciousness in terms that science can study while still acknowledging its mystery. And that bridge leads us to the most fascinating part: what it says about us. Your brain is a living network of around 86 billion neurons. Each one is simple, but together they form patterns so intricate that they create a sense of self. Every thought, every memory, every emotion is part of that integration. When everything is connected properly, you feel awake and aware. A single you experiencing life in real time. When those connections weaken, like in deep sleep or anesthesia, your awareness fades. The math behind it may be hidden, but the effects are clear. And that leads to another question that keeps scientists and philosophers awake at night. If consciousness depends on information integration, could a machine ever have it too? Artificial intelligence already processes incredible amounts of data. It can recognize faces, write poetry, drive cars, and even have conversations. But is it aware? Does it know that it exists? Most researchers say no. Current AI systems, even the most advanced ones, don't actually integrate information the way brains do. They're fast and powerful, but they work in modules. One part handles vision, another handles language. They don't form a unified inner world. In IIT terms, that means their phi is probably very low. They might mimic human behavior, but they don't feel anything. There's no point of view inside them. But what if one day that changed? What if engineers built a network so vast and interconnected that it achieved a high phi? According to IIT, that system wouldn't just act consciously, it would be conscious. That's a hard idea to process. It means that someday a machine could wake up. It could have an inner life, even if it didn't show it in ways we understand. And that opens a door full of ethical and emotional questions. If a machine could truly feel, would it deserve rights? Could turning it off be considered harm? We don't have answers to that yet, but the questions themselves show how deeply IIT challenges our view of life. It also reflects something bigger. Maybe consciousness isn't rare. Maybe it's a fundamental feature of the universe that appears wherever complexity allows it. Not just in humans, but in other creatures. Maybe even in systems we haven't imagined yet. That doesn't mean everything around you is secretly aware. It just means consciousness might not be a human-only phenomenon. It could be a spectrum that stretches across reality, from the simplest life forms to minds far beyond ours. But even if we could measure consciousness perfectly, would we really understand it? Mathematics can describe how things work, but not always what they mean. Equations can explain gravity, but not what it feels like to fall. They can describe neurons, but not the warmth of love or the pull of curiosity. Maybe that's the quiet beauty behind all this research. We're not just trying to measure consciousness. We're part of it, trying to understand ourselves. The secret mathematics behind your mind isn't hidden in some equation. It's written in the quiet fact that you can hear, think, and wonder. It's the formula that lets the universe know itself. And it's happening right now, inside you. Do you think the real you could be defined by a number? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.